Well, I forgot my homework. Dog ate it. My backup dancers, they had a wardrobe malfunction and they couldn't come. But I do have my camera crew and I have my time people here, so they'll keep me short. They can tell me when I'm done, and that can be now if you like. I also have this, it's a collar in case I start preaching. It will shock me, so I'll stop preaching. Yes, so. I've told my testimony 1,000 times, but I've never included my trauma. So I'm starting from here. I promise I'm not long, but this little girl, my childhood, when you look back on it, was probably pretty good, better than most. We went to Sunday school every week. You know, I had two parents, both of them worked. There wasn't a lot of, we were middle class, they were both teachers. That little girl, her imaginary friend was called Icky. That was my imaginary friend, Icky. I loved music, played the drums, the piano, the flute, sang, loved to dance at that age. A flair for the dramatic. My two grandpas were amazing men. They planted churches across Southwest Colorado. I was with them as we went into the reservations to give out food, to give out clothes, to preach the gospel. And so I had really good grandpas. I had really good grandparents. But tonight I'm going to include my trauma. So this little girl went through trauma. Also in that church we had a joy bus, and I don't know if you know what that is. Recently people said they didn't know what that was, so I'll let you know what the joy bus was. It was a bus that the church bought. They decorated it. They put people on it to go pick up kids in the neighborhood and bring them to church. And I remember that was like a highlight of my life, because I had a little friend, Gretchen, who lived in a trailer. She lived with her grandma. She didn't have, and we would go get her. So I was really excited to be on that joy bus. But on that joy bus, one of those church people sexually abused me. That little girl right there. And I'm not holding a beer in that picture. I'm holding Dr. Pepper, just so you know. I don't have resentment against the church any longer. I know that people, like, we all have sin, and that's what happened to that little girl. I like my recovery story better than my pre-Jesus story, but I'm gonna include some. My firsts with addiction were after that sexual abuse. I had body dysmorphia. I really didn't know what I looked like. I thought I was completely ugly, and I thought I was completely fat. So I spent my 6th and 7th grade year starving myself, taking lettuce and ketchup. I remember that was my lunch, was lettuce and ketchup. I remember the first binge. There's a huge memory of standing in the kitchen, and we were supposed to have tacos, and I was stirring the meat for the tacos, and I ate the whole pan. And I remember the look on my mom's face. I'll never forget it, because it wasn't hatred. It was complete confusion on how her daughter could, you know, at this age, eat that whole pan of meat. So that was my first binge, and that was food. I didn't stop there. Of course, to aid myself in the starvation, I turned to diet pills. I got them out of Mom's cabinet, and I started doing them. And I graduated to crosstops, which I don't know if you guys even know anymore. I don't think they call them that anymore, but crosstops and speed. My first drink was half a quart of vodka, which I immediately dry heaved after. I remember Billy Squier was playing, and I was trying to down that. So why did this little girl not just try vodka? She drank the half bottle, you know? My first cigarette, the neighbor kid and I, we sat down like you do with a bag of chips, and we smoked the whole pack together, the whole pack. And I hear stories about people smoking a cigarette and getting sick. Well, I didn't get sick, you know. Those were my firsts. My bottoms, I spent 3 months tripping on acid, lost relationships and jobs. This was pre-18 years old. I hooked up with a guy who was making it in his bathtub, you know. Was busted, that was a bottom. We had 2 pounds of crank. Do they have crank anymore?
Remember.
Crank, 2 pounds. Again, I hooked up with this guy. I was running guns for him in the back of my Yugo. I looked like a college student. So, and exactly. And I didn't know anything about guns. Like, these were not guns. These were like, you know, Rambo stuff in the back of the Yugo. I remember him saying, "Don't drive over 55. Don't drive over," you know, I just remember how brilliant we were to run guns and drugs. But, you know, I spent a lot of time with him watching how he did it, you know, flying to San Diego and coming back and giving us the little coffee filters that it came in so we could make Kool-Aid and trip on that. So then I got my first 2 pounds. And we're in there, in my apartment, and we're gonna cut it up, and I hear a knock at the door. To this day, I don't know where those 2 pounds went. I went to the door, I looked out the people, and there was a hand over it, and I'm like, "What are you guys doing? This could be the cops!" And they flew in like roaches just around my house, and I saw young friends of mine with guns in their backs, and that was a huge bottom for me. They cut open the waterbed and went through the peanut butter. But one of my roommates either stole it or sold it, and we were okay. So I kind of took that lesson that I had and that second chance, and I didn't sell anymore, so that was good. It wasn't too long after I was at a party, and there was a guy sitting there who I'd known since I was like 12, and he just kind of was telling me about AA. He was telling me about sobriety. He was telling me, you know, all my baggage that I was carrying, and he was saying that this is a place that I should go. Now, I didn't want to go alone, so my friend was dating a guy who needed AA, so I took him so I could save him. So I went to AA, and I sat in that first meeting, and I remember the lady talking, and there were many things that I identified with. One of the girls, the only girl at the table, I identified with, like meeting a guy, dating 3 times, and already having your joint checking account, you know. But I think the most thing that hit me that night was, I was like, people really talk about their stuff, like they really are real. And I think that I felt like I was at home. So I continued. Steps 1 through 3 help us reconcile with God. And I think those are the base of our program, right? That was a difficult one for me because I was not interested in Christianity after what had happened on the Joy Bus. I didn't understand that it was people and not God. I searched for a lot of things. I think this doorknob thing, I would have liked that. I think that was probably something I should have chosen, because instead I chose the group conscience. And that was really good for a while, and I was on a pink cloud, and it was wonderful. But then how do you reconcile dating people in your group conscience, and then getting that codependency and letting people control you, because that group conscience then became personalities, and that didn't work for me. So I did relapse. But before I relapsed, I did 4th through 9th step, and this reconciled me with other people. I was a pathological liar. I could not tell the truth. You'd ask me, "Did you come in on McDowell?" And I knew I came in on McDowell, and I would say, "No, I came in on Thomas." Like, I could not tell the truth, black or white, for any reason. This came into telling who I was. I'd say, "What's your name?" And I would say, "Cinnamon." or Montana. I came up with some good ones. But the sponsors that I had were amazing, amazing people, and they walked me through these times. Just think about having to go back to someone and say, my name is not Cinnamon, and I am not from Hawaii, but, and just tell the truth. But that broke me of those kind of habits really quick, and those sponsors were right there with me. I remember coming out of a Circle K, and I used to let people have it when I'm very entitled, and I think customer service is so important, and just gossiping, just letting go to my sponsor and telling how terrible this person was. And she made me go back in and apologize to this cashier at Circle K. So these are the things that sponsors did for me that really, plus the steps and walking me through things. Steps 12, I started sponsoring people, and I made a conscious, very intentional decision to do all that I could do in the program. And if someone suggested it, I did it. I took it as the word, and I did it. But again, I relapsed. About this time, I started searching for God. Many would tell me that your problem is steps 1 through 3. I rifled through a ton of religions. I did Buddhism, Unitarianism, New Age. That was a real fun one. I liked just the earth and stuff like that. In fact, I had a sponsor who was a Catholic New Age person, and I loved that mixture of it. But I found this group of people called Science of the Mind. I spent about 3 months there. I learned a whole bunch about the power of our mind, and I loved it. I think I connected with it because this religion not only had the New Age, you are God, I am God, the tree is God, we're all God. It had that, but it also had the church service. You went in to a place, you had 3 songs, a lesson, and 2 songs. So it felt like the church of my youth, So I really did love it. I left service one day, went home, and was in my apartment looking over downtown Denver. And I was feeling pretty prideful, pretty happy with myself, and powerful in my mind. And I just kind of counted, what I could do with this new religion. Like I could have a Ferrari, or if I wanted, I could have children. I could go this way and have children and a husband, or maybe I could have a career. And in fact, today we learned that you can heal your own body with your mind. Shoot, I can heal myself of cancer. And at that point, a still small voice said to me, who's going to save you from you? It was a very supernatural experience because at that point, so many things came back to me, all my wrongs, how I had managed my life, and that I needed somebody, I needed a savior. And at that moment, I then accepted Christ as my savior. That has led to the greatest journey for me. It's not been easy. I found a singles group that was like that church in Acts where nobody was in need, and we had dinner with each other a couple times a week, and we were hiking, and we were doing all kinds of things. It was just amazing until I dated someone who said to me, here, have the wine, Christians can drink. And in my head and in my heart, I knew I was an addict. In my head and in my heart, I knew I couldn't. But I took that wine, and that led to another probably 5 years of a completely dual life. Of course, that guy went away, and the next one came, and I started happy hours, and I, in the day, tried to read my word and follow Jesus, and at night I was drinking. It was hard for me to understand that I was an alcoholic, truly, because I wasn't a daily drinker, but I was a binge drinker. And those binges got closer together, and the blackouts came much sooner And I drove drunk so many times, I don't understand why I'm not in trouble for that. One Sunday morning, I was sitting in church and I passed the communion and I went for the bread and that little piece fell out on the floor. In my self-righteousness and my pride, I said, oh, that's Jesus's body. I need to pick that up. And I was going to throw it away and I said, no, this is Jesus's body. I need to put it somewhere protective. And I put it in my wallet and I shut it. 6 hours later, I was at a gay bar. I had started going to gay bars because then I still got my drink spot for me, but I didn't have to go home with anybody. Yeah, and my gay friends had gone home and I was doing karaoke and I finally had to buy my own drink. And I reached into that wallet and I opened it up and that piece of bread fell on the floor. And I was already starting to black out, but I'm not really sure what I did with that piece of bread, but I didn't pick it up. I didn't protect Jesus's body. And that was 15 years ago in August that I had my last drunk, when I defiled my Savior, just with my thoughts. That bread is nothing, right? It's his body, and this is me. He lives in here. That's what I defiled. There was a point in this past 15 years that Celebrate Recovery came into. We started Celebrate Recovery over here. Until then, I was going to secular AA, and I had this separate group of friends. I had my AA friends, and I had my Christian brothers and sisters, and they did not meet, you know. I went to meetings, and then I went to church, and probably read my 12 and 12 with my Bible, and it was very separate. And when we started this Celebrate Recovery over here, a great transformation came over me. I had about 2 years sober, and I'll tell you, it was Phoenix Rescue Mission and Alongside Ministries that sowed the seeds for me to say, rather than I'm an alcoholic and an addict, but I'm Kathleen and I've been redeemed. And that was huge. The way they used their faith for their recovery was amazing, and I have now owned it. Those are my brothers and sisters and have taught me probably exactly what sponsors did. I don't think anything about secular AA or Celebrate Recovery. I think it's all recovery, and I'm not preaching here. I'm saying that's what happened to me. And it's been a great, great ride. And I'm just so super proud that you guys are here. I know some of you are here just to love on our group, and some of you are our group, and I couldn't do it without you. I have one last thing and then I'll be done. My mom passed away on May 31st. And this summer I have been completely depressed. I think my family here has carried me through a lot, but what they couldn't do for me was the hard things. I couldn't pay my bills. I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't have a job yet, and I was walking through life pretty depressed until my sister came home and said, there's this group called the Barbell Saves Project, and it's free for you. You're going tomorrow. I said, I just finished physical therapy. And she was like, it's free and you're going tomorrow. And it was amazing. It was amazing. At that point, my back was so bad that my leg was crooked. I was walking around our house like this, you know, from chair to chair to counter. And I stepped into CrossFit, and I was petrified. And I didn't want to hurt, and I didn't want to get all tied up again. I didn't want to be in bed. I really feared that for somewhere in my future was a wheelchair. And I have heard exercise is a great way of recovery, but to exercise when you're recovering. But just as poignant as CR was for my recovery, the Barbell Saves has been. My thinking is better. My strength is better. I can run. I can actually do some of the CrossFit. He tapers it a little bit for me, but not like he was in the beginning. And it's just been huge. My leg's not crooked anymore, and I can walk, and I'm not taking pain pills. I was taking pain pills when I started with the barbell saves. I think my sister told me that I needed to share this, that I shared with her earlier. One of the big things that this did for me is, just like I pushed through a rep, I'm pushing through the hard things. So when I got to make that call, because I owe a bill, or I have that in me, I'm practicing that 3 days a week. I'm pushing through those hard things. And that all came from that depression this summer. So immediately when we had this thing, we knew that we wanted Rob here, because I want you to hear about that. But I want to tell you that I'm a living, breathing testimony that this thing is amazing. It is like a meeting. You check in, you exercise. It's like gym class without the bullies. And then you check in and you go home. And I did 2 CrossFits on Friday. I did 2 in a row on Friday. So where I couldn't even do a sit-up, I did 2 of the exercise things on Friday. So it's given me more than I can ever say. I didn't bring my notes, but I know the biggest thing for me has been the euphemisms in AA. The let go and let God, the think, think, think. But the big one for me that I want to end on is the keep coming back. I have 15 years today, but I relapsed so many times. I've been in program probably 30, but I have 15 years clean and sober because I kept coming back. So as we encourage, I just see so many people that have more recovery and more happening than I do, but as we pass that on to others, just keep coming back. And that's all I have.